Hello and welcome to IP Study Video Lectures, and today we are going to discuss Chapter 9 from Grade 8 Social Science, and the name of the chapter is The Struggle for Freedom. In this chapter, we are going to discuss few important topics. First topic is the Gandhian era, followed by evolution of Indian national movement during the year 1922 to 1929, Purna Swaraj, followed by civil disobedience movement, then Government of India Act 1935, the final phase of Indian national movement, and lastly the transfer of power. So before we discuss the Gandhian era, it is important to have a brief understanding about the period between 1914 to 1920. So in this period, the First World War broke out, and Britain, they fought in the war. Britain utilized the raw material from India to fight this war. So understanding this exploitative nature of the British, the Indian leaders, they opposed to this. Okay, and it was in this period that the demand of self-rule also intensified. The nationalism also intensified in this movement, and the national movement or the freedom movement, it got a new momentum with the introduction of Mahatma Gandhi in the Indian politics. Okay, so the first topic is the Gandhian era. Mahatma Gandhi, whose full name is Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, was born on 2nd October 1869 in Porbandar in Gujarat. Okay, he went to England to study law, and from there he went to South Africa to practice law. So it was in South Africa he fought against apartheid or discrimination. Okay, he led many Indians and other communities in his effort to fight discrimination. Okay, his method of fighting was called Satyagraha. The word Satya means truth and Graha means to hold fast, to find truth, or to fight for the truth. Okay, Satya and Graha. And this Satyagraha, it had three principles. Firstly, non-violence. Secondly, non-cooperation, and passive resistance. So what does non-violence means? Means the Satyagraha should be free of violence. There should be no violence in it. Secondly is non-cooperation, means there will be no cooperation, or there should be a passive resistance against the British or the evildoers. Okay, so Gandhiji believed that we should fight against the evil, not the evildoers or the person doing the evil. So evil is the thing that we should fight against. Okay, so from South Africa he came to India in 1915, and it was in the same year that he established the Sabarmati Ashram at Ahmedabad. Okay, so Gandhiji slowly entered the Indian politics, and his first three important movements were the Champaran movement, the Ahmedabad Mill Worker movement, and lastly the Khera movement. And all these three were successful. And it was in Ahmedabad Satyagraha he met with leaders like Vallabhbhai Patel and Rajendra Prasad. Now let us discuss Rowlatt Satyagraha. So the British government on 18 March 1919, they passed an act called the Rowlatt Act. And as per this act, British could arrest and detain any Indians for 2 years without any trial. So Gandhiji and other leaders, they rose to this occasion and protested against this act. Okay, and Gandhiji gave a call for all India strike on 6th April 1919. So they realized that this act was very evil and this was not lawful in nature. Okay, and this Satyagraha, Rowlatt Satyagraha, also paved the way for non-cooperation movement later on. Now let us see Jallianwala Bagh massacre of 1919. So on 10th April 1919, two national leaders, Dr. Saifuddin Khichlu and Dr. Satyapal, they were arrested. So in protest of this arrest, peaceful people, they gathered in a park at Amritsar called Jallianwala Bagh on 13th April. Okay, so they were just there to protest against this arrest. General Dyer, a British officer, he along with his troop entered the park close all the exit, and General Dyer, he ordered his troops to shoot at those people, unarmed, innocent people. Okay, many of those people were killed, many of those were injured. So this was a very gruesome act done by the British. So Indians and the leaders like Gandhiji and other leaders, they protested it, and many of the Indian leaders also renounced their titles given by the British. For example, Rabindranath Tagore, he returned his knighthood to protest this massacre of innocent people. So this was the Jallianwala Bagh massacre of 1990. Now let us discuss the Khilafat and non-cooperation movement. So what was the Khilafat movement? So after the First World War, British emerged victorious. On the other side, Turkey lost the First World War. So the British imposed a very humiliating treaty on Turkey and on its leader. However, the leader of the Turkey was also the Caliph of the Islam. So this humiliating treaty triggered and angered Muslims all over the world. So similarly, Indian Muslims were also angered, and they launched the Khilafat movement under the leadership of Ali brothers, Shaukat Ali and Muhammad Ali. So Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Mahatma Gandhi saw this movement as an opportunity to unite Hindus and Muslims. So they urged the other Indians to participate in Khilafat movement, and later on non-cooperation movement which followed the Khilafat movement. So what was the non-cooperation movement? So on August 1st, 1920, Gandhiji gave a call for all India non-cooperation movement, and this was to protest the wrongdoing in Jallianwala Bagh massacre and wrongdoing done to the Turkey. Okay, so non-cooperation movement was launched, but it was a very sad day also, because it was the day Bal Gangadhar Tilak passed away. Okay, so what was the method of non-cooperation movement? So non-cooperation movement simply aimed to disrupt the normal life of the British administration. They did not want the British administration to function smoothly. So there were different phases. The first phase or the first stage included the Indians to return all the titles given by the British. Like I have already discussed, Rabindranath Tagore returned the knighthood given to him. Similarly, Gandhiji returned his title of Kesari-Hind. Secondly, students and teachers, they were asked to boycott the universities and schools and colleges that was established by the British. On the other hand, indigenous education institutions were opened, such as Jamia Millia Islamia and Kashi Vidyapith. So in order to compensate the loss of the education of the Indians, the indigenous education institutions were promoted. Thirdly, the Indians, they were told to boycott the British goods. So all the British made goods were boycotted, and they were asked to promote the Swadeshi goods, or the goods that were made in India. So not only the common people, but the people like lawyers and all the people working in the British administration were asked not to work for the British. So they were told to boycott the courts and all the institutions in which they worked. So strikes were held, boycott of the goods were done, and Swadeshi was promoted in the non-cooperation movement. And lastly, people also were urged to not pay tax to the British government. So this was the different methods of non-cooperation movement. So its main aim was to not cooperate with the British government so that their administration is disrupted. So now with non-cooperation movement going on, the British did not keep quiet. They attacked and they arrested many Indians who were protesting in the non-cooperation movement. Okay. However, Congress in its session, Ahmedabad session in 1921, they upheld that they will continue the non-cooperation movement. So non-cooperation movement went on with full momentum, with people boycotting British goods and promoting Indian goods. Gandhiji even promoted the use of charkha, and the khadi which was made from charkha became a symbol of resistance or Swadeshi. However, the non-cooperation movement came to an end because of one unfortunate incident. Gandhiji told his supporters that the movement has to be non-violent. There should be no violence involved. But there was an incident of violence and which forced Gandhiji to withdraw the movement. So why was the non-cooperation movement withdrawn? Firstly, Gandhiji urged the movement had to be the movement had to be non-violent. But what happened on February 4, 1922 in Gorakhpur, there was an incident where the police fired upon the protesters. So in anger, the protester, they burned the police station in which 22 policemen were killed. So Gandhiji realized that the movement was turning violent and was forced to withdraw this movement when it was going on its peak or it was going on its full momentum. However, the non-cooperation movement failed or was withdrawn. It has its importance. Now let us see why was it important. Firstly, it was a large-scale participation of Indian masses. So Indian masses at large scale participated in this movement. So, and this movement was not done in a particular part of a country. So it was done in different parts of the country. It was wide scale. Thirdly, Hindu-Muslim unity was promoted and we saw the unity of Hindus and Muslims in this non-cooperation movement. So we can say that the non-cooperation movement has its lasting impact. Now let us discuss the evolution of Indian national movement between 1922 and 1929. So with the withdrawal of non-cooperation movement, Gandhiji was imprisoned for 6 years. So without Gandhiji, there was a split or division among the Congress leaders regarding what should be the way forward, which strategy should be used. So this led to the formation of Swaraj Party. So now there was two groups. Okay, so one group was led by Chittaranjan Das and Motilal Nehru, and they were in favor of participating in election. Okay, and this group formed the Swaraj Party. So they were in favor of participating in the election. On the other hand, there were other groups which was led by Dr. Rajendra Prasad and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. They were not in favor of participating in the election. Instead, they wanted to focus on the constructive method proposed by the Gandhiji. So there were two groups. Okay, so Swaraj Party was formed by Chittaranjan Das and Motilal Nehru. They participated in the election and they won many numbers of seats. And once they entered the assembly, they made sure that the British were not able to form repressive laws. They restricted the British in making many repressive laws. On the other hand, the group led by Dr. Rajendra Prasad and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, they followed the constructive program. So what was the constructive program? The first one was the spread of Khadi. Second one, abolition of untouchability, Chhuachut. Okay, and promotion of Hindu-Muslim unity. So this was the constructive program which was proposed by Gandhiji and followed by one group of a Congress, and the other group formed the Swaraj Party. Let us discuss the mobilization of peasants. So during the non-cooperation movement, a large number of peasants participated in the movement. So now Congress realized that it is important to solve the problems and challenges faced by the peasants. So in 1928, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, he started the Bardoli Satyagraha to protest against the increase in the tax which the peasants had to pay. So now comes the revolutionary movement or the rise of the revolutionaries in India. So the revolutionary group were a bit different. They actually believed in violence. Okay, their ideology was a bit different. Gandhiji believed in non-violence, while revolutionaries believed that violence was necessary to get freedom or win freedom from the British. So the important revolutionaries like Ram Prasad Bismil, Jogesh Chandra Chatterjee and Sachin Sanyal established the Hindustan Republic Association, and which later became Hindustan Socialist Republic Association under the Chandrasekhar Azad. Okay, other important revolutionaries like Bhagat Singh and Batukeshwar Dutt, they threw bomb in the Legislative Assembly, and their aim was not to kill anyone but to show British the rising revolutionary spirit of the Indians. In the same way, in Bengal, the Chittagong Armory raid happened under the leadership of Surya Sen. An important part of revolutionary was that the participation of women. So the women also participated in these revolutionary activities. Okay, so revolutionary movement also played a very important role in Indian national movement. Now let us discuss Simon Commission. So the British knew that constitutional reform can actually suppress the national movement. So with this view, they sent a commission to India under the leadership of Sir John Simon in 1927. It was called the Simon Commission, and this commission was to decide the future of Indians. However, ironically, there were no Indians involved in this commission. So the leaders of Hindu Mahasabha, the Muslim League, the Congress, everyone, they jointly protested and opposed this commission. So when this commission finally arrived in India in 1928, it was met with black flags, protest, and slogans like Simon go back. So there were lathi charge. Okay, the British lathi charged the protesters, and it was in this unfortunate lathi charge, Lala Lajpat Rai was severely injured and he later died. So in order to avenge the death of Lala Lajpat Rai, Bhagat Singh and Rajguru, they assassinated a British official thinking that he was the superintendent of the police who ordered the lathi charge. However, it came out that it was a different British officer. As a result, Bhagat Singh along with his companion like Sukhdev and Rajguru, they were hanged to death on 23rd March. So this happened because of the Simon Commission. So Simon Commission did finally submitted its report. However, it was met with resistance from the Indian leaders. So let's see the Purna Swaraj and the young leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhas Chandra Bose. So now the young leaders like Subhas Chandra Bose and Jawaharlal Nehru also now come into the limelight. Okay, Jawaharlal Nehru was the son of Motilal Nehru, the person responsible for formation of Swaraj party. Okay, so he was a follower of Gandhiji and he participated and led many national movements. On the other hand, Subhas Chandra Bose, he studied in England, he joined the civil service, but later he resigned from civil service and he fought for the total freedom or total independence or the Purna Swaraj. So these leaders, they were inspired by the Russian Revolution of 1917. They realized that the Purna Swaraj or total freedom or independence is the only goal of the national movement. Okay, so these two leaders, they played a very important role in Purna Swaraj. So after non-cooperation movement, another major movement was the civil disobedience movement. So Gandhiji launched the civil disobedience movement with a satyagraha against the salt law. So what was the salt law? So under the salt law, no one in India was allowed to manufacture salt without the permission of British. As we all know, salt is a very important part of our life. So Gandhiji realized that this was a very exploitative law. So he intended to break it, and with this, the civil disobedience movement was launched. So on March 12, 1930, he started a walk from Sabarmati Ashram to the coastal town of Dandi, and he reached Dandi on 6th April 1930. He along with his followers reached Dandi and they broke the salt law. Gandhiji picked a few amount of salt from the coast and thus the salt law was broken. Following Gandhi, many people all over India also did the same, and with this salt law was broken and civil disobedience movement was launched. So during the civil disobedience movement, the British laws were disobeyed all over the country. People boycotted foreign goods or British goods, they burned the British goods, and they also picketed in front of the British shops that sold British goods. Okay, not only this, they also boycotted the institution that was run by British, like college, universities, schools, courts and offices. People also refused to pay revenue or taxes to the British. So, in particularly when we talk about this, the Northwest Frontier Province, here Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan along with his followers called Khudai Khidmatgar, they refused to pay tax. And Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan is also called Frontier Gandhi because of his commitment towards non-violence. Okay. So, in 1931, in the Karachi session of the Congress, they adopted two resolutions. One was on the fundamental rights of the people and another one was on the National Economic Program for India. And this National Economic Program included economic planning, land reforms, basic education and industrial development. So, all this was the way forward for the Congress. So, now comes the roundtable conferences. So, 3 roundtable conferences were held in total. So, the first was held in November 1930 and it was to discuss the proposal given by or reforms proposed by the Simon Commission. We should know that the Congress boycotted this conference, okay, and it was participated by the Hindu Mahasabha, the Muslim League and the representative of princely states. So, since there was no Congress, a major Indian party, there was no decision of the conference, okay. Now comes the Gandhi-Irvine Pact of 1931. So, Gandhiji met the then Viceroy, Lord Irvine, and signed the Gandhi-Irvine Pact. So, as per the pact, the government was to release the political prisoners and the Congress was to withdraw the civil disobedience movement and participate in the second roundtable conference. So, now with the signing of Gandhi-Irvine Pact, the Congress, they participated in the second roundtable conference held in 1931. Gandhiji put forward his demand. However, his demand was not met by the British. So, disheartenedly, Gandhiji returned back from London to India and launched the civil disobedience movement again. However, with the relaunching of civil disobedience movement, many leaders and the supporters of Indian National Congress were arrested by the British. Okay. So, their properties was seized, newspaper and other means of communication was also banned in order to suppress the national movement. Now comes the third roundtable conference that was held in 1932. In this roundtable conference, most of the Congress leaders were still in jail. So, the Congress boycotted this roundtable conference also. However, many other party attended and participated in this conference, and it was through this conference that led to the passing of Government of India Act 1935. So, now after the third roundtable conference, government passed the Government of India Act 1935. So, what was the provisions of Government of India Act 1935? Firstly, creation of All India Federation in the British provinces and the Indian states. Secondly, the system of diarchy was introduced. So, in diarchy, the subjects were divided into two, reserved and transferred. Okay, transfer like education, agriculture were given to the Indian ministry, while the important subjects like defense, finance, those all were kept under the British. Thirdly, the central legislature was to be made bicameral. Bicameral means two houses, like we have in India, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. And lastly, provincial autonomy was granted. So, Congress did disapprove this act. However, it did participate in the election to the provincial assembly, and out of 11 provinces, it won majority of seats in 7 provinces. Muslim League also won few seats in the Muslim electorate seats. Okay, so now with this, the Second World War broke out in 1939, and the British decided that the Indian soldiers will fight on behalf of the British without even confirming it from the or without discussing it with the Congress leaders. So disapproving this decision of the British, the whole members of the Congress elected in this provincial assembly resigned as an act of collective disapproval. So now let us discuss the final phase of the Indian national movement. Okay, so in this we will discuss the demand for the Pakistan by the Muslim League. So now in this period, the relationship between the Muslim League and the Indian National Congress become worse, or we can say that the relation between the Hindus and the Muslims, it became very bitter. Okay, British on the other hand, they encouraged this communal rift or division between the Muslims and the Hindus in order to suppress the national movement. Okay, so what happened was, when Congress resigned from their ministry, the Muslim League actually celebrated it, and they even declared 22nd December 1939 as the day of the deliverance. Okay, so now Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he had a theory of two-nation theory, that Muslim deserves a separate nation or country, that is Pakistan, right? So his two-nation theory actually began to find favors among the Muslims, or Muslims started to support his two-nation theory. So in the Lahore session of the Muslim League that was held in Lahore in 1940, the Muslim League adopted a resolution. They adopted a resolution, and that resolution included the separate state of Pakistan, or the demand of the separate nation of Pakistan. Okay, so now let us discuss the Cripps mission of 1942. So the World War II, or the Second World War, started in 1939, and Britain and Japan, they were fighting each other in this war. So in 1942, the Japanese troop invaded Burma, or present-day Myanmar, and they reached the borders of India. So now what happened? Under this situation, British needed the help of India. Okay, so in order to convince Indian leaders to support the British in their war against Japan, they sent Stafford Cripps, and this was called the Cripps mission. Okay, so this mission was to convince the leaders of India so that they can support the British. However, the mission, it failed because the Indian leaders, they demanded a independent nation, or independence, complete independence and transfer of power, which the British denied. As such, the mission was a failure. So now let us come to the Quit India movement. Okay, so after the failure of Cripps mission, most of the Indian leaders and the Indian masses, they were very angry. Okay, so now Gandhiji, so he decided to launch his third important movement, and that was the Quit India movement. Okay, so Gandhiji declared that he will be launching a Quit India movement. Okay, and he told the Indian masses that this is the time to do and die. He gave a slogan, do and die, but it should be in a non-violent mean. Okay, there should be no violence. However, before Congress and Gandhiji could do anything, the British, they tried to suppress the movement, and they arrested most of the important leaders along with Gandhiji. So the Quit India movement, it became leaderless. However, young activists, they organized themselves and they demonstrated and they protested in different parts of the country. Okay, they even formed independent government in places like Midnapur and Satara. However, because of leaderless movement, or the leaderless characteristic of this movement, the British were able to suppress this movement. However, it took them more than 1 year to entirely suppress this rebellion or this movement. So let us see now Azad Hind Fauj. So Azad Hind Fauj plays a very important role in the Indian national movement in the last phase. Okay, so Indian national movement grew more stronger with the formation of Indian National Army, or also called Azad Hind Fauj. So Azad Hind Fauj was formed of prisoners of war, Indian prisoners of war, or Indian soldiers, those who were captured by the Japanese soldiers. So Azad Hind Fauj had Indian prisoners of war or Indian soldiers. Okay, it was initially established by Mohan Singh in 1942, and it was revived and reorganized by Subhas Chandra Bose in 1943. Okay, and in October 2nd, 1943, provincial government of Azad Hind or Free India, provincial government of Free India was formed in Singapore. And in 1944, Azad Hind Fauj entered India through the northeastern portion along with the help of Japanese troops. Okay, so Subhas Chandra Bose was able to convince Japan to fight with Azad Hind Fauj against the British because their enemy was the same. However, Japan later withdrew, and Azad Hind Fauj, though they fought very courageously, they were not able to liberate India completely. Okay, however, they did conquer and liberate places like Imphal and Kohima. And it was in this, we can say, movement, or in this campaign, Subhas Chandra Bose gave the slogan Delhi Chalo and Jai Hind. So now we have come to the last topic of the chapter, that is transfer of power. Okay, so by the end of World War II, Britain had become economically weak because of the war. At the same time, the Indian leaders and the Indian national movement had pressurized them. Okay, and they were also attacked by the Azad Hind Fauj from the northeastern part. So all these factors made Britain realize that it was not possible for them to control or make India colony for much longer. Okay, so there was unrest all over the country. So after the war, election was held in which Congress won more than half of the seats, and Muslim League, they won the seat reserved for the Muslim. Okay, so now there was an unrest, turmoil in the country. As such, the British Prime Minister Clement Attlee decided to transfer powers to the Indian. So let us see how transfer of power unfolded. The first one is the cabinet mission. So after the Second World War, British was no longer in position to continue its rule in India, because they realized that Indians will no longer tolerate the humiliation of foreign rule. Okay, so they sent cabinet mission in India in 1946, and the objective of this mission was to negotiate with the Indian leaders regarding the terms of transfer of power. Okay, so after its arrival in India, it made its own suggestions. Okay, so what were its suggestions? First was India should be a federation with large amount of autonomy given to provinces and states. However, this suggestion was rejected by both Congress and Muslim League. Okay, so this also set a background for the partition of India. As such, now the partition of India was seen more inevitable. Now let us see steps toward partition of India. We all know that it was the British who devised the policy of divide and rule. Okay, they divided Hindus and Muslims in order to suppress the national movement. They knew that Hindus and Muslims united was a very unstoppable force. It was a very strong force. So they divided Hindus and Muslims. They encouraged communal tension and discrimination among Hindus and Muslims. Okay, so now there is one portion there is Muslim League, and in another there is Indian National Congress. Okay, so in 1940, as we have already discussed, the Muslim League in Lahore session adopted the resolution for separate state or nation called Pakistan. So after the failure of cabinet mission, Muslim League declared the Direct Action Day on 16 August 1946. So what was the Direct Action Day? So Direct Action Day was launched by Muslim League in order to get Pakistan by any means possible. So on that particular day, there were communal riots all over the country, and mostly imported in Bengal, large number of people were killed. The situation was so bad that Gandhiji had to travel to Bengal in order to make sure that peace and harmony is restored in the area. So this was the Direct Action Day launched by Muslim League in order to get Pakistan. Now let us see the last topic, that is the India wins freedom. So Mountbatten, who was the last viceroy of India or during that period, announced that India would become a separate state or separate country. However, India would be partitioned into two countries, first Pakistan and then India. Okay. However, the national leaders did not like this but they had to reluctantly accept this offer. So because they did, in order to end the terrible communal riots that was going on around all in a different part of the country. Okay, so they reluctantly accepted this offer. So as a result, in July 1947, Indian Independence Act was passed in British Parliament. Okay, July 1947, Indian Independence Act was passed in British Parliament. So as a result, power was transferred to new dominion of India and Pakistan, or two new countries. As a result, Pakistan became independent on 14 August 1947 and India became independent on 15 August 1947. Okay. So, on 15 August, the national flag of India was hoisted at Red Fort, and Jawaharlal Nehru became the first Prime Minister of India, while Mountbatten became the first Governor General of independent India. So this is in this way the national movement and partition of India, also the freedom of India, it all unfolded very slowly. Okay. So we have come to the end of the chapter, and now let us discuss the few important points that we have discussed in the lecture. As we all know, the national movement or the freedom movement of India gained a new momentum and grew stronger with the arrival of Mahatma Gandhi in India in 1915. Okay, the Jallianwala Bagh massacre was a very unfortunate incident in which General Dyer, a British officer, ordered his troop to shoot or open fire at innocent masses or crowd who were gathered there in the park in Amritsar. The Congress launched the non-cooperation movement in 1920. It aimed at protesting against the unfair laws of the British, as well as they wanted British to redress the evil done at Jallianwala Bagh massacre. So when non-cooperation movement was withdrawn by Gandhiji because of Chauri Chaura incident, it led to the rise of revolutionary activities in India. Okay. Simon Commission, it arrived in India in 1928 and it was boycotted by the Indian leaders because there were no Indian involved in the commission or included in the commission. In 1929, the Congress put forward the resolution of Purna Swaraj or complete independence. The civil disobedience movement, it started in 1930 with Dandi March. Okay. And the Quit India movement, it was the third large national movement launched by Gandhiji. It started in 1942. And in 1943, Subhas Chandra Bose, he revived and reorganized the Azad Hind Fauj or the Indian National Army. And finally, India became independent on 15 August 1947. So with this, we end the chapter here. I hope this lecture was able to clarify your doubts regarding this chapter. And we'll again meet in our new lecture next time. Thank you.